Humans have domesticated a lot of animals: cows, chickens, horses, bees, the occasional silkworm. But there's only one animal we kept redesigning after we were done. We tamed the dog around 15,000 years ago. And then, for some reason, we never stopped tinkering. For the last 2 centuries, we've reshaped dogs: their legs, their faces, their skulls. Whatever we happened to find appealing that decade, we bred toward it. It mostly worked. That's the problem. For most of that history, breeding a dog was a practical thing. You had a job, and you needed a dog shaped like the solution. Sheep wandering off? Breed the dogs that herd. Vermin in the barn? Breed the small, fast, slightly unhinged ones. Pulling a sled, guarding a gate, flushing a bird out of a hedge. Every one of those is a different body, and we built every one of those bodies on purpose. This is selective breeding doing exactly what it says on the label. You pick the parents with the trait you want, you repeat, and a few dozen generations later, you've got a dog fitted to a job like a key to a lock. None of this is the dark part. The dachshund is a stretched-out predator designed to fit down a badger hole, which is horrifying if you're a badger, and completely fine if you're a dachshund. For thousands of years, this is what dog breeding was: function in, function out. And then, in 1859, a book came out and quietly ruined everything. The book was Darwin's On the Origin of Species, and one of the ideas people pulled out of it was that traits could be selected, shaped, improved, that you could take a living thing and steer it towards some ideal. This landed in Victorian Britain at the exact moment the British invented a new hobby: the dog show. Before this, dogs were sorted by what they did. The dog show sorted them by how they looked. For the first time, breeders weren't competing over which dog worked best. They were competing over which dog best matched a written description of an imaginary perfect specimen that did not exist and never had. They called it the breed standard. Somewhere, a committee wrote down the ideal dog, and then everyone started racing toward a dog that was only on paper. And the breed standard is where it goes wrong, because a standard is a fixed target. It says the nose should be this short, the face this flat, the legs this bent. Every generation, the breeders who win are the ones who push hardest toward that target. If you want to know how Victorian this whole idea was, look at the man who read that same Darwin book and decided the logic shouldn't stop at dogs. His name was Francis Galton. He was Darwin's cousin, and The Origin of Species convinced him you could improve people the same way you improve livestock, by controlling who gets to breed. He invented a word for it. The word was eugenics. Galton actually used dogs to test his theories, because they breed fast and you can watch the results stack up across generations. He owned a pedigree Pekingese named Wee Ling. So the father of eugenics, the founder of the entire idea, went home every night to a small, flat-faced dog he had specifically picked for its bloodline. He was living in the metaphor and did not appear to notice. Now, historians argue about how tightly the dog show world and the eugenics world were actually linked. But they didn't need to be linked. They came out of the same place. The same century, the same book, the same confidence that a living thing was a rough draft you could correct. People were proud of this. They thought they were making things better. They were not. Here's the part the Victorians couldn't see because they didn't have genome sequencing, and we do. They were working entirely off vibes and a strong opinion about ears. In 2016, a team of geneticists sequenced dogs and lined them up against wolves, specifically to measure the genetic cost of everything we'd done. And this next part is the scientists' own conclusion, not mine. Their paper says the deep bond between dogs and humans has, their phrase, a dark side. All that intense breeding, all those small, closed populations chasing a standard, had quietly stacked up the number of harmful mutations carried in the dog genome. The mechanism is bleak and simple. To hit a breed standard, you breed a small number of correct dogs over and over. A small, closed population can't clear out its bad genes efficiently, so they pile up. And not just near the gene you were selecting for. Everywhere. You were aiming for a particular shade of coat, and you also shipped a liver problem you weren't looking at. The clearest single case is the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Small, affectionate, bred mostly for looks and sweetness, out of a very narrow founding population. A 2022 genetic study found it carries a measurably heavier load of harmful mutations than most breeds. And that load has a headline consequence: a heart condition. A slowly failing valve that the majority of Cavaliers develop if they live long enough. Not a risk, not a tendency, a near certainty built into the breed at the factory. You buy the dog, you're buying the heart condition. They come together. And then there's the face. We bred several breeds, pugs, bulldogs, French bulldogs, to have flat, short skulls, because at some point we collectively decided that looked cute. But the soft tissue inside the skull didn't shrink to match the bone. It's all still in there, folded into a smaller space, pressing on the airway. Studies of these dogs find a lot of them can't sleep properly. Their blood oxygen drops over and over all night. And here's the part that stays with me. Most owners don't notice. They think the snorting is just the noise the breed makes. It isn't. It's the sound of a dog working to breathe. Here's the thing I want to be fair about. There was no villain. No Victorian gentleman stood over a pug and said, "Let's take the breathing." They were chasing flat faces and short legs and the correct coat, and the damage rode along behind them, invisible, generation by generation, until it was baked into the animal. That's what makes it dark instead of evil. We wanted dogs a specific way, so badly, for so long, that we stopped checking what it cost them. The dogs, meanwhile, have no idea any of this happened. The Cavalier with the failing heart still wants to sit on you. The pug still thinks it's doing great. So that's where we are. We took a wolf, spent 15,000 years making it love us, and then spent the last 200 quietly editing it for looks until parts of it stopped working. It's the longest, most affectionate engineering project in human history. And we forgot to check our work.